Welcome to another episode of Down by Law, featuring your host, Daryl Gray, the fantastic and magnificent uh, personal injury rock star, $1 million mouthpiece, caring, loving human being. Uh, we have a really nice show today. We have some amazing special guests that we're going to talk to about one of the most important aspects of life in New Orleans, and that's safety and some of the stuff that we've been dealing with for quite some time has kind of moved to the forefront of everybody's consciousness, and that's gun violence. We've had two of our guests on before, and I have a special relationship with them because I represent them, the family of Jameer Alford. We're here to talk about some updates with what they're doing in the community to bring awareness to take their tragedy and turn it into a positive thing for the city of New Orleans, and some of the things they're doing to keep working toward um, justice for their son. So we have them here today. We also have a special guest, Mr. Patrick Young. He is the director of the Office of Gun Violence Prevention for the City of New Orleans, and he's going to give us some information. It's a new um, department, I guess you could say, for the city, and it means that our administration, our mayor, is really taking a strong look and taking some very strong steps toward curbing gun violence in the city of New Orleans. So we're going to have a wide-ranging and really poignant conversation with all three of our guests today. So I want to welcome them to the program, and we're going to jump right into it. Patrick, I'm going to let the Alford family speak first because I want them to give some updates as to where we are with the foundation and things that they have going on. How y'all doing this morning?
Good morning. Good morning. How are you, Daryl?
Doing well. Glad to see y'all. So, we got a big weekend coming up.
Yes, we do.
Okay, let's talk about that a little bit.
This weekend, June 5th, we have Let Me Live. It's a rally, Justice for Jameer, Justice for New Orleans. We're asking for all parents, the community, to come together as one to rally for justice for our city.
Okay. So, let's give everybody the location and the times and all of the information.
The location will be, we'll start at the Walgreens on Bullard and Lake Forest for 10 a.m. We'll travel straight down Lake Forest to Reed and into Joe Brown Park in that shelter number 3.
Okay. Now, I've said this to y'all on numerous occasions, and I want to say it again. I'm very proud of the approach that y'all are taking towards dealing with this tragedy. The positive approach is always the best approach. And, my hopes and desires and wishes are that nobody deals with the tragedy that you guys have been through. And you all are giving hope to those who have suffered similar situations in the past. And I know that y'all are involved with a lot of parents who have dealt with this same situation.
Yes.
We want to let them know that their families are in our prayers and our thoughts, and this is something that can be done with the involvement of a lot of different people, which y'all are seeing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, that's wonderful. I mean, it's not much more you can ask for in those kind of situations. And y'all are taking an amazing approach and an amazing show of strength to galvanize the community against gun violence, especially when we start talking about losing children like we lost Jameer. That's something that I don't care who you are, what your political affiliations are, your socio-economic background, whatever. When you start talking about losing a child, a good kid, to gun violence, that's something that we have to take a pause and try to figure out what the solutions are. And and as it relates to solutions, having Mr. Patrick Young here today city is doing to help be a part of the solution. Mr. Young, good morning, how are you?
Good morning, I'm well. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk about, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and then we'll kind of ping pong everything back and forth. So if you could just let the people know who you are and what you do here in New Orleans.
Patrick Young, I'm Director of Office of Gun Violence Prevention for the Mayor's Office.
Okay. And tell everybody a little bit more about what that office does.
So the office is a new office that was created by the mayor. When she first was elected, she galvanized the committee to figure out exactly how do we tackle crime in New Orleans. And one part of that selection of that committee was to create this Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Since the 90s, we haven't had a federal funded study on what are actual causes of gun violence. And what I mean by that, there's no study, no data, no information to say what's causing gun violence, specifically here in New Orleans. So it's kind of crazy when you think about that. Right? There's nothing to say what happened in the 90s when we had gun violence at a higher rate, post-Katrina, pre-Katrina, and right now even we're saying it's 13, 14, 15-year-olds that are doing gun violence, right? We're saying that. Well, what was happening 13, 14, 15 years ago in New Orleans that they grew into to where now they're being able to be we don't have any information or data. So one of the first things that we want to do with the office is to create a policy lab in partnership with Tulane so that every 6 months we'll be able to produce a report to the citizens, to the community to say, hey, this is what's going on, this is where it's happening, here are some of the social determinants of why it's happening. It's easy to say, oh, the parents, it's easy to say it's the racism, it's easy to say it's the economic climate, but without the data to support it, it's hard to stand on any of those arguments. So the mayor is saying, let's take an intelligent approach by first finding out what's causing it based on the information, and then we can implement some of the interventions to prevent it from happening.
Yeah, that is key. It crystallizes everything, and I don't think you can take any kind of approach to solving any kind of issue without understanding the data and seeing what the actual statistics are and things of that nature. So that's something that I'm very encouraged by hearing that the city is taking that approach. And I would be remiss if I did not mention, and one of the reasons we wanted to have this episode was this is Gun Violence Prevention Month, right? And I guess there's initiatives and things of that nature, and it's so insane that this is such a systemic problem for the United States as a whole that we have to have a Gun Violence Prevention Month,
Right.
Awareness Month. So bringing that to the forefront and keeping it as a strong point of conversations about how to cure the community and how to make all of our cities a better place is pretty profound. So Patrick, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions as it relates to what you guys are actually doing, because we understand, hey, this is a problem, we need to solve it, we need to figure out how it started, but there's some drilling down into the data. What approaches are y'all taking in terms of, once you get the data, what are gonna be the next steps to try to solve this problem in New Orleans?
That's a great question. But first, why the data is also important. As an attorney, and as this family sitting here, just imagine if the unfortunate incident happened and the police came back and said, well, we have no report.
Right. What do you do with that?
And so that's where we're starting with when dealing with all of these cases. We have no report. So that's why the policy lab is going to be so important. The second thing is that we look at what are some of the other factors we can look at. And one is economic development, reinvesting in communities that have been disinvested into. So we look at first with youth, 16 to 24, we have a Jumpstart program where we're able to do an 8-week work readiness training program, and then we can assist them with the partnership of Job One to get them also a 9-month internship, learning careers, learning trades, work skill. And these are kids who have been disconnected from school or who are involved in the justice system. We also see that we have one of the highest incarceration populations. So as people return back into the city, what people don't know is that Louisiana leads the nation in restriction post-incarceration. We have over 380 restrictions for someone who was formerly incarcerated. And so with that many restrictions, trying to get employment almost seems impossible. So the next step is for us to have a conduit where they can get employed. So we have the CEO program, where we work the program where to help people who are formerly incarcerated get employment opportunities. And a new initiative is the Barbers and Beauticians Fellowship, where we teach conflict management skills to barbers and beauticians. Why? These are strong community stakeholders who are leaders in the community, who are credible messengers, who can now promote a message of peace to all of their customers. Whether you're the governor or the person with the gun, you're gonna get your hair cut.
Right.
And so in that conversation, if someone can speak a word of peace, of how to de-escalate the situation, we need as many community stakeholders to say, stop it, instead of people that's putting up their cameras to show it.
504-582-9422, 504-582-9422. We do have a caller, I wanna grab him real quickly. Let's put, Brother Al Mims on. Brother Mims, how are you?
How you doing? I'm 67 years old, and you know, you Google me and you see the work. I've buried thousands of people. But let me say this, it ain't rocket science. Don't make it harder than it is. Economics, kids with the same, you know, you kids learn from who they with. You know, they got girls out here, they thugettes, they female thugs. What I'm saying, don't make it, you know, this research, it ain't rocket science, bro. If we talk about gun violence, when people learn, and when children learn and see the violence, they grow up to handle their violence. When they get their argument, they see their daddies and their mamas and their uncles shot and get a gun. What they gonna do? So what I'm just saying is, you know, there's some things that it ain't rocket science. We don't have to put a whole lot of in time. And I want to see y'all 504-914-1622. When y'all do with y'all report, I'm on the street ministry, and you know they got people that hate me. People say, why they want to kill you, Mr. Mims? If people want to kill me that I didn't tell. I served on the pro board. They got some people, you let them out, and they gonna do the same thing. We gotta change. We gotta make some changes. We gotta make some changes in the way government going on. You know, so if I sound like I'm not a celebrity, I just want to say I've been hearing a lot of people debating and debating. People dying while we debating. It ain't rocket science. It's not. You know.
Thank you.
So I like when y'all ready to go on and hit the streets and things. Brother Mims, MIMS, 504-914-1622. I'm ready to go.
Thank you, Brother Mills. We appreciate that. And yeah, that's one of the things we're here talking about today. We want to find solutions. Like, we want to stop it and curb the violence at a point to where, you know, there's not any retaliation or there's not something that's gonna continue this tragic cycle that we've been dealing with. We're gonna take one more caller. Anthony, you're on the line. How are you?
How y'all doing? Good morning.
Good morning.
Look, somewhere I heard that white is the new black now, right? White folks have upped their game on attack on black folks, and the reason why we're losing our lives. And if we can't figure that out, there's no more research we need to do. We need enforcement of getting the criminals off the street. So that means the black politicians that keep coming up with this, we gonna do research and we gonna do this and we gonna do that, that's the sellout. That's the sellout. You know why? Because while they're doing that, we are dying. We are dying. And until we realize that the black folk that they put in office, that's giving us that bull crap, you got me? They are the problem. And those are the ones we need to be getting rid of. The people that keep running this game on you, like the mayor and this, that, and the other. Get the criminals off the streets. Do your undercover work, and we wouldn't have these problems, right? So all your little research games, That ain't nothing but bull crap. That ain't nothing but some more stuff why black folks are dying. We need to start protesting these black politicians that lie to us on a regular basis. Do your undercover work and get your criminals off the street. We wouldn't have these problems.
All right, thank you, Anthony. We appreciate your comments. So, let me ask a question, guys, and I'm gonna kick this to y'all, Alfred now. From a grassroots perspective, how do y'all feel that y'all have y'all had any good feedback from your relationship with, elected officials, the police, things of that nature in terms of this situation? I know y'all are doing a lot on y'all's own, on your own, but have you guys had any good feedback?
Overall, yes, we have.
Yeah.
Since the incident first occurred, day one, I can honestly say that, from the mayor down, everyone has been, right there. Every word every promise that they made, they've held to, even down to our detective. I mean, every call he accepts, every text message he accepts, so
We can't say anything bad. Not in our case, we can't.
Yeah.
And I mean, as far as criminals, you don't know who's a criminal.
Right.
So that's not any city officials, fault, or they don't know either.
Right. Yeah, but the thing about it was, like you said, and that's been my experience with you guys, which has been very encouraging. With Patrick sitting right here,
Right.
it shows that the city is completely vested in changing the narrative. They're doing what they need to do to try to make this a better and safer environment for the citizens. We've had a rash of crimes lately, which, is mind-boggling to me, because I grew up in the hood, I understand it. But just to have citizens, grandmothers going to the grocery store, being, succumbing and being victims of gun violence and things of that nature, it's just really, really disheartening. And there has to be a conversation had about it, and I don't care what anybody says, you have to understand the data. Like, if you don't know why and how and the point A, like this, we had this many incidents of gun violence, and it happened in this area, and it happened at this time of day or night. You have, all of this stuff is important in order for you to address a situation.
Yeah, I agree.
And just to piggyback off of that, I first want to just acknowledge two quick things to call up Brother Mims. I will be calling you because we do need more people, and maybe getting involved with the Office of Gun Violence, you can understand the work. And also the second brother who called, we will want to work with the office as well to get more people engaged in doing the work and understand what's happening. But going back to just this weekend, Memorial Day weekend, across the country, you had Chicago, 32 shot, 4 died. Baltimore, 8 killed. Houston, 10 killed. Miami, 21 shot, 3 killed. New York, 7 killed, 16 shot. New Orleans, 12 people shot, 3 people killed. It's not just us.
Right.
And there was this movie, I Am Legend, where this virus passed and people turned into these zombie-like things, creating violent behavior. We feel the same way. Violence is a virus, and it's spreading, not just in New Orleans, but across the country.
Yeah.
And unless we attack it like a virus, we won't be able to stop it. And the first thing you have to do is identify the virus. Identify violence. I tell in the conflict management training, where does violence come from? Well, in 2017, the #1 song was In My Feelings by Drake. And we find out that a lot of stuff that's happening in New Orleans, people in their feelings. And if you don't know how to properly handle your feelings and emotions, it tends to lead to violent behavior.
Yeah.
Violent is just a criminal thing because everybody has a violent tendency. Everybody has a button that they can press that can turn to potential violence. If you're not conditioned and trained on how to control your violence and control your anger, your frustration, then something bad can happen. And we find a lot of people just don't know how to handle their feelings and emotions, and so they react.
Right.
You have kids who've been taught, if I hit you and somebody does you something, don't tell me, you go back and hit them back. And don't come back. And if you don't hit them back, I'm gonna hit you. Those conditioned behaviors
That's
have been-
retaliation.
Yeah.
You have parents who say, if something's wrong, I'm gonna whip you. That is a a tradition that's been passed down through slavery. If you didn't do right, the slave master will whip you. And so we continue these generational acts of violence, and then when we see it over and overly expressed, not just here, but passed through social media, passed through phone and text conversations and music, we wonder why the community is in an uproar around violence, and we have to stop the spread.
It's a general desensitization, people being desensitized in general
Right.
to violent acts. Like, it's just a part of our culture. And that's one of the things that, like you just talked about when you gave those statistics about different cities all across the country. It's an epidemic nationwide, and is very unique to the United States of America. Some of the statistics that I have that I want to talk about, which kind of puts everything in perspective, because, you know, we're considered a developed, high-income nation from a global perspective. But for us, gun violence is a huge part of our culture and our everyday lives. And when you start to look at it, we are 25 times more likely to be killed by in a gun homicide, Americans are, than places like Canada, our neighbor to the north. We share a border with them. We share a lot of cultural similarities, but they don't have the same gun violence. Why? France, similar situation. They don't have the same gun violence. Why? New Zealand and Australia, they don't have the same gun violence, but historically, those two countries were started as penal colonies. So you're starting a country based upon a criminal element, but they don't have the same level of gun violence as America. Why?
Well, how many shootings have we seen in the Superdome? None, because guess what? Guns are not allowed.
Right.
Right? Post 9/11, how many shootings have we seen on airplanes? None, because after 9/11, rules and restrictions were put in place
Yeah.
that didn't allow you to carry weapons on board.
Right.
And so when we look at some of the laws and restrictions that we have around guns, Louisiana has a weak system of gun laws. They're trying to pass legislation now that will say you don't even need a permit or a license to carry a gun concealed.
Right.
And so the more we loosen the restrictions, the more accessibility we have to guns. The more guns we have on street, the more they're likely to be used.
We're gonna take a call. We have Miss Cheryl on the line. Miss Cheryl, how you doing?
Good afternoon. Well, good morning. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Thanks for holding.
I pray that the family don't go through what I've been going through. My son was murdered in New Orleans at age 22, before his 22nd birthday. And right now, it's been like maybe, 23 years ago? No. Yeah, he will be 45 right now, okay? But there's no evidence, you know, there's nobody to say who shot him. And the murder and the solving of the murder is still unsolved. So I pray that they get closure for them all, you know, because there's so many kids that's out there that's been murdered in New Orleans, and their families still don't have that joy, you know. And this kid had a little boy, you know, like I didn't know about the kid till he was 5 years old, you know. So I have to think about the generation coming behind them also, plus the grandkids and great grandkids that I got coming up. So I got granddaughters and stuff like that, and a grandson that everybody in the world wanted him, especially the military. But he said, we told him, you can't get in. Once you get in, you can't get out of that one, bro. But do what you're supposed to do. But I just want y'all to try to make sure that the kids are getting the things that they need, and make the fathers be a part of their lives. And if they're not, they should be charged for desertion, you know. And like I said, I'm from a military type family. My husband was in the Marine Corps. I spent 12 years of my life with one man, you know. And when it happened, it's like I'm still alone and by myself, because I can't trust nobody. Because when you talk to me in a way that I remind me of what happened to me when my husband tried to kill me, hell no, I ain't going that way. So it's good to be alone and by yourself and one with the Lord. And that's where I'm at right now. But y'all stay safe and stay blessed.
Thank you, Ms. Cheryl. We appreciate your comments. So we have one more caller we're gonna take, Kevin Gentili. This is Down by Law with your host, Daryl Gray. We have the Alfred family here today, and we have Mr. Patrick Young from the city of New Orleans, Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Kevin, how are you?
Fine, and man, thank y'all for participating and trying to come up with some solutions to make a better, quality of life for people. Far too few, people are doing that, and that's kind of what I'm trying to address here. We seem to understand cause and effect and discipline and the consequences of not having discipline when it comes to every other aspect of life, individually and when it relates to others. But we don't really seem to understand that when it comes to collective participation in society. Because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a macro system that's causing the individuals to behave a certain kind of way. And what I mean by that is this: until we, particularly black, we gotta realize all of us are unique. All of us. If I lose my discipline, I'm gonna individually suffer the consequences of what I've done. And that translates to the larger community. Look, we've been here 450 years as slaves. And matter of fact, we just celebrated 100 years of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And there was 100 Tulsa, Oklahoma. Until we realize we have a unique set of circumstances that affect us and respond to those unique circumstances as a community, we are going to continue to have these problems. It's basic physics. If you don't
Right.
address your particulars will doom you to in the future.
Thank you, Kevin. We appreciate the call. Thanks so much. So, Alfred family, what do y'all want to see, like, in terms of the changes that you all feel we need to have in the community as a whole?
We all as a community have to come together as one, for the change. I think that it's time that people stop blaming certain people, and we all have to come together. Come together meaning hitting the streets, like the rally that we're gonna have on Saturday. We have to have many more of them to change.
I agree. John, you got anything on that?
I agree also that it's gonna take everyone coming together. The complaining and finger pointing at this point has gotten us here and hasn't changed anything. So it's gonna take, action. And we as a community, we look to our public officials to change it all. When, in all honesty, we can control what's changed.
Right. You know, that's one of the, I'm glad you said that, because that's what I was gonna throw to Patrick. You know, and it's a yeoman's effort, like, it's a lot of moving parts to it. But I think that, like you just said, we can change it on a very low systemic level if we start to deal with things like conflict management. You know, Patrick, I know we talked about that earlier. What have you found through the studies that y'all have commenced, and just some of the things that you're seeing early on? Because the office is relatively new, but you guys have already kind of started to do some of the work. What about the conflict management that we need to look into that can prevent some of the stuff that we're seeing?
Not just conflict management training, but cognitive behavior therapy as well. If you look at just this year, mass shootings, we've had over 67 mass shootings across the country.
Define mass shootings.
Mass shootings is when multiple people get shot at one time. And so when you have people who say, oh, it's a black on black thing, well, you think about the family in San Jose, where it was a white gunman who went into work that day and decided he wanted to shoot all his coworkers. Right? And it's been over 60 mass shootings already in the first half of this year. Also, when we look at, well, let's remove all the criminals. So those were Jim Crow laws that would say, let's just remove all the black people from white communities, because black people being former slaves, they're no good for society.
Right.
We can't then people will say, well, let's just lock them up. We've been trying to lock people up in Louisiana since lock them up started. We led it. So what are some of the, so again, the data is so important, because we can't do this blindly. We have to identify exactly what's going on here, why it's going on. And if there's no data, again, since the 90s, there's no federal funded research around gun violence.
Right.
And so our job is to really identify the highest at risk. We want to intervene and mediate, and we want to change some of these social norms. Yesterday, the Jameer family and I, we actually were at the balloon release for Tandriana Peters and her mom Katrina. And what she said is so important is that we have to come together. We have to be able to collectively organize to say what we want to accept and what we don't want to accept for our community. We can march and protest when something happens with the police, but when it's happening within us, we don't do the same type of advocacy. And so we're talking about how can we come together to galvanize to say, hey, let's sit down with our kids, let's sit down with our community, and let's talk about our feelings. Why are you reacting this way to begin with? Whether it's with the schools, whether it's with NOR, whether it's with faith-based organizations. And I just want to say that I appreciate the superintendent, Sean Ferguson, with the police department, because they've been open to allow us to even discuss with the police. I actually had the opportunity to do a conflict management session with the SWAT team and how they engage with the community.
Mhm.
It's not just one-sided. It has to be both-sided of the equation to where everybody understands that we need to get a hold on our feelings and how we react when our emotions are flared.
Yeah, I think Superintendent Ferguson is really trying to change some things in the city. I'm encouraged by his efforts. I hope they continue, and I hope we could start to tie together all these different pieces. Grassroots organizations and efforts like what the Jameer Alfred Foundation is, coupled with City Hall and the churches of New Orleans and the health care initiatives and organizations in New Orleans, all working together to curb something that's really systemic and wide-ranging. And Patrick, like you said earlier, it's a public health issue.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, if you think about it, it's very similar to a virus in the sense that it affects so many different people. It's wide-ranging. Like we talked earlier, Jameer was a great kid.
Yes.
He wasn't involved in anything that would bring him into a situation where he could potentially be a victim of violence. He was doing something that he had been doing for quite a long time, visiting with his family
Right.
during the holidays and going to just a simple, normal, run-of-the-mill task or occurrence that's going to Walgreens, going
Right.
to the store, and you're a victim of gun violence from that kind of situation. That means that it affects everybody.
Yeah.
Right.
That's when you start talking about, it's a virus.
Mhm.
It affects everybody. I don't care who you are from
Nobody's
walk of
immune.
life. Nobody's immune to it.
Right.
So we have to put that in the forefront of our minds as we address these kind of situations, these kind of going-ons. Mass shootings, I want to go back to that just for a moment, because there's a difference in my mind as it relates to an individual having some kind of situation going on, and then that situation leads to violence and mass shootings. I think when you start talking about mass shootings, you really get into gun control and an analysis of the people who are actually purchasing these weapons. Because if you are a certain kind of person, you can go in and inflict violence on everybody on your job because you're upset. Then how do we keep guns out of the hands of those kind of people?
So it's to your point, it's the trigger. So you mentioned the Tulsa situation. So the Tulsa situation was because someone was in their feelings about this black person, and it was reported to this white person. The white person then talked to their community, and in retaliation, they decided to do something violent, right? And when we have that, it happens the same way on social media. Someone will say something about somebody to shame that person on social media. It's passed to their friends, it's shared, and in retaliation, I'm gonna come back to school and do you something because of what you said. We have this tit for tat, where if you do me something, I'll do you something. And what happens is, I hit you, you go tell your brother, you go get your brother, I'm gonna get my dad, I get my dad, I'm gonna get my cousin. You go, it's the same cycle. And until we address it, the same way we look at COVID, how is COVID spread? It's spread through contact. But all these things and interventions were put in place. You gotta wear a mask, you gotta stay 6 feet apart, you have to do this. And now they're saying, well, get a vaccine. The vaccine is gonna produce antibodies that's gonna allow you to stop the spread. We can have this herd immunity of people that are vaccinated. Why can't we have a herd immunity of peace? Why can't we have a herd immunity of people who are saying that if we inject positive antibodies of positive people in the community that's saying, let's stop it, let's stop it. So we have the barbershops, we have the community store owner, we have the families here, we have the lawyers, we have the faith-based leaders. Everybody is saying a call for peace. Well, we have to inject that to everybody to where we can have a vaccine of herd immunity of peace in our community. And that's what we want to do with the Office of Gun Violence Prevention.
You listen to Down by Law with your host, the fantastic, magnificent, well-rounded, and very loved by his mother, Attorney Daryl Gray. I have the Alfred family here today with us. I'm so proud to be a part of their lives and represent them. I also have Mr. Patrick Young, 504-582-9422. Mr. Patrick Young is with the City of New Orleans Office of Gun Violence Prevention. We have a call of Daryl. Daryl, I like your name, man. How you doing?
That's why y'all doing. Good morning. My name is Daryl. Nice name.
Yeah, I love it.
Daryl, great. Yeah, I love it too. This is my thing. The LMM, I thank y'all. I thank Anthony, and I used to come on the radio too. Only we're gonna stop this problem if we get out there in March and we tell on our kids, you selling drugs. I'm the parent, I'm gonna tell on you. My mama told on me years ago when we breaking in a warehouse. I got with this bad group and we stole some stuff off the train out the warehouse, put it under my mama's house. When the police came, my mama said, that's not hard. Take that from under there. That's not hard. He put that under there. You got to tell on your kids. You know they selling drugs. You know they doing wrong. The sisters got to tell on you. The parents got to tell on you. You got the right. If they call you a rat, let them call you a rat. That's why they trying to call you that, because they want you to get out of that. I'm calling you a rat. If I'm going to be a rat, I'm going to be a rat if that's going to help solve this problem. This is a problem in New Orleans. And that's the only way we're going to solve it. If everybody speaks out. The family got to speak out on their sons, their daughters that you're doing it. I know you don't want to do it, but you got to. God bless your heart.
Yeah, it's definitely an issue in New Orleans we have to deal with. I think that, there's a lot of positive approaches that are being taken right now. The economics of this city are such that gun violence and violence in general, they stem from that kind of stuff. So, that's something else we have to focus on. Like, Patrick, we also talked about this, like programming. What are we doing? Like, once we identify some of the issues that are bringing about this violence, what are we doing to put people in a position where they can choose not to take violence because they have so much going on in their life that they don't want to jeopardize and risk that kind of situation? John, what do you think?
It's kind of funny you brought that up because I had a conversation with somebody recently, and they asked about where we were in the criminal case, and they asked, they made the comment that I know you can't wait till they catch him and put him in jail. I was like, I don't think I really feel that way, and they, I was crazy or something. Does put him in jail does what? After they put in jail, and the mentality that he's gonna pick up in jail is not gonna help him once he comes back out. That person probably will come back out and do the same thing, like say, if there isn't any programs left. So for me, justice for Jameer is just not a person being caught and placed in jail. It's accountability across the board for everyone. It's seen change within the community to where no parent would have to deal with this ever again. And jail is not the answer. I do believe that more programs and having them, like you say, having things that they don't want to lose, people don't want to lose, would help in that situation.
Real quick, Pat, before you start talking, I want to say this, to that point, and Patrick, I know you're going to talk about this as well with your next comment. We're going to have Professor Armstrong on from Loyola University to talk about mass incarceration and how that affects our community and what happens after people are released from incarceration. So Patrick, what were you gonna say just now?
Just listen to the father. He made me think about something. If you came home this afternoon and your house burned down, the first thing you want to know is what happened. And I'm coming back to us doing this policy lab because so many people have these fires around their families and what happened, and nobody knows what happened. And then we say we want to just place in incarceration. Well, where's the report to say that incarceration hasn't worked? Right? I believe in penalty. I believe in that something should happen, but it should be tied to an outcome as well. So what I mean is that if someone is going into an institution, they have to be released with some type of credential, right? Let them be released with some condition of having educational attainment, some type of trade, some type of skill. You shouldn't just be leaving the same way you went in. But if there's no assessment to say, where has incarceration worked ever in America?
That's the CEO program, right?
So CEO is tied to economics to say that we have restrictions in Louisiana that bar people from employment. And so their goal is to make sure that everyone who returns from incarceration has a job. We have to fix some of the barriers that we have in our community. And one of them is employment opportunities for people that are formerly incarcerated. And I'm speaking from experience. What people don't know is that one, my brother was murdered in '97, still an unsolved case. Two, because of that situation, I dropped out of college. I got involved in something bad and went to prison for armed robbery. I served 13 years and 9 months in the Department of Corrections. And now released and being able to lead this work with Office of Gun Violence Prevention, I'm not guessing. I'm living from experience and talking about how I changed my life and I was able to improve, and hopefully that can be an example for other people. And so it's not just speaking from a political standpoint. No, this is personal. My mother is still grieving.
Yeah.
Right. And you walk it like you talk it. You know, the thing about this situation is having somebody who's the director of a program who has been through all phases of what we're trying to correct and curb is very, very important. So, and I want to talk about this because, you know, you talk about restrictions. Let's in real life, let's talk about how these restrictions affect ex-felons or convicted of people who are re-entering society. How do these restrictions keep them from getting jobs? Like, tell us how it actually works.
So for someone that's a barber, you need a license. You go in front of the barber licensing board, you're going to be denied because you have a conviction. If you want to be a phlebotomist, you have to go in front of a board, get a license to be a phlebotomist. So it's putting you, I'll give you a better example. In California, if you were an inmate and there was a fire, you can work as an inmate to fight a fire. But once you're released, you can't become a fireman. In Louisiana, for FEMA, for hurricanes, if there's rebuilding after a hurricane, after Katrina, you saw a lot of inmates doing work, rebuilding the community. After you're released, you can't work for FEMA. But you can do the work as an inmate, but you can't do it as a returning citizen. And so some of those policies restrict you from creating an economic opportunity for you to grow, develop, invest. So you're stuck in poverty. And the more you're stuck in poverty,
Vicious cycle, man.
and the more you're stuck in poverty, the more you're stuck in incarceration.
You can't win. Like, you can't win. Hey, we're gonna take a call from Courtney from off the front porch. Courtney, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning, good morning. It is Courtney P. from the front porch, and I'm loving the conversation this morning. I just wanted to echo and give my agreement to Patrick on what he just said about incarceration. I think that part of the reform will have to be programs and services while you're there. I think sometimes you can't wait until a person gets out and then say, okay, now we're going to work on the rest of your life. I think rehabilitation should come inherent with incarceration. With that being said, also, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, the last study I saw about Louisiana's recidivism, I think we're at about 32%, which is high. However, that does mean that, you know, for 70% of people, it did work. So I you know, I echo your sentiment that there should be some penalty. I do think, you know, to a certain extent, incarceration does still have its place, but I think it should be met with programs and services while a person is there and can concentrate on changing their future.
Thank you, Courtney. We appreciate the call. I guess we'll see you soon, right?
So you'll see it very soon.
So listen, that's a very interesting point. Thanks. She's off. Lee, stop making me nervous, man. That's a very important point. So you take it from a drill down perspective. 7 out of 10 people who have been incarcerated, they're not going back to jail. But what's their quality of life? You still have these huge restrictions on the things that you can do, and that's what we need to change. Like you can keep, you know, if you change it, maybe we can go up to 90%. You know what I mean? Because now people have valuable opportunities to re-enter society, and you start talking about giving people opportunities to do what they could potentially do to raise a family and have the American dream. You know, just that mistake of committing a crime, because a lot of times it's, you know, it's a one-off situation for some people.
So just piggyback on that point. When slavery ended, over 4,000 people who were former slaves died of hunger just because they couldn't get a job. Right? And so, okay, we're free, we're out of slavery, but now you have restrictions to where no one wants to hire you. And so what we have now is, okay, we're letting people out, but we're not gonna hire you. So what we see now is a rising homelessness. If you go to any mission right now and ask the people their condition, they will say majority of them are formerly incarcerated.
And that's indicative. You know, you start talking about data. That's the thing. That you go from being incarcerated and you're back on the streets, or you're back in society and you're living on the streets because you can't find a means by which to provide for yourself.
Exactly.
You know, and these restrictions, we have to really talk about how to work around those restrictions and allow people to truly and honestly be rehabilitated. Because you say rehabilitation, but what does that actually mean? Because it's a misnomer, because we don't, you know, if somebody's rehabilitated, then they are eligible to re-enter society and walk along and live and work like everybody else. But is that true? It doesn't seem like it. Brother Corey, how are you? We're gonna take your call.
Well, thank y'all. You know, I had to call. What's going on, Mr. Patrick?
What's going on, boss?
Well, all I said is, you know, I've been watching you since you first got out, my little brother, and I said that you've been doing a great job, and I've given your words, what you're saying. And again, rehabilitation is called rehab, man. You know, you ever go to rehab? You ever heard people go to rehab, AAA, and say, I did this. See, we have to first say, you know, in our hearts and in our minds that we are guilty of something. But we don't face our own realistic stuff about what is, quote unquote, the rehabilitation that we definitely need to be honest with ourselves. Now, y'all spoke about, quote unquote, you know, hunger and stuff like that. Remember, after slavery, you know, we left the plantation, they left the plantation field because all of us wasn't in slavery now, all these small segments. They left the plantation farming, but and the farm wasn't getting taken care of, so they had to get the cops to arrest them so they go back to the prison population so they can work the skills again. We gotta know this is a systematic system that we in, and all way that we can alleviate this, and we get ourselves the baseline, and we commit to ourselves, say to ourselves that we are, you know, we need help. Everybody, I even need help. Right. You know, everybody needs help. Every one of them have PTSD. Every last one of them has some type of situation that we're going through with our family or with somebody in our life. Until we answer that question and say and give us the correct answer to that question, we're still gonna be in this mess that we in. And again, until we get together as men and as women, as community, all our children will be part of a system because that's their plan to do that. So thank y'all and keep up the great work. And Patrick, like I said, I always thought you were gonna do great things, my young man. So keep on doing great work and just be truthful to yourself and truthful to everybody else. Peace and love to y'all, and thank y'all.
Appreciate that, Brother Corey. You know, mental health in the Black community is such a big thing. It's such a discussed and underserved aspect of who we are. You know, everybody has a crazy uncle or auntie, and you know, we just act like that's just, you know, okay, whatever, they're crazy. But we gotta start talking about how mental health is not talked about in the black community, and how we need to start taking some steps to change that narrative as well, and let that stop being so taboo. You know, to deal with, you know, your mental health and strain, because everyday life is tough. Can you imagine, you know, you go to prison, you serve your debt to society, quote unquote, your debt to society, and you come home and, you know, you got all these responsibilities, things you want to do, and you can't find the means to do that, and you're willing and able to do it. You know, that's a very, very tough situation for a lot of people to be in, and we don't shine enough light on that situation. You know, that's really unfortunate, and you're relegated to the lower rungs of society when it comes to working. You know, if you're a smart young man and industrious person like Patrick here, you ain't supposed to be cleaning nobody's toilets. You need to be leading the conversation and changing the dynamic of what's going on by, you know, talking about, hey, this is what I did, this is what I went through, and this is what we need to do to change it, to prevent it. You know, that there are a lot of people out there who are willing to do those kind of things after having those setbacks of incarceration, but we have, again, restrictions, like you can't do this because of that, you can't do this because of that, you know, on top of the fact that you black.
Yeah. But what I want to say is that, you know, it's not about me. We're here for Jameer, and I love the commentary, I love the passion, but if you really feel that way, then join us.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, be there Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And let's say that you don't debate against me, join me. Right? I know alone I can't do this work, the mayor can't do this work, the DA, Jason and his team, alone they can't do this work, but join us.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
help us out and give us some guidance. Brother Mims, come walk with us. Like, I've always seen you with your sign, and I support you, whether it was at the school board meetings. Like, I was behind you. And so, Corey, I was behind you. I want to be behind you. Just be behind me in stopping this. I just want peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, be a part of the solution. That's
Yeah.
what everything's about.
And again, we're here for Jameer, all right? And just like we're here for Jameer, next week we could be here for Tandriana,
Yeah.
right? And the next week after that, we can be for the other names of the lady who called in about her son, right? But we can't be here saying the same thing if we're doing nothing.
Right.
Right. And that's what, you know, this is a real connection. This is, you know, you got the city on one side, you have the Alfred family on the other side, and it's about, you know, everything being interlocked and, you know, concerted effort. And like you said, join us at the
Yeah.
march. You know, join if you're so concerned, get out here and let everybody know. You know, take those steps. Now let's give everybody information again. Where you guys, what's going to be going on this weekend?
This Saturday at 10 a.m., we're gonna have a march and rally for justice for Jameer and justice for Nola. In that we're seeking peace for the city. Too many kids are losing their lives to senseless violence at this point. This would be the first step in many that we would have to take to change, to make change. So, like I said, 10 o'clock at the Walgreens on Bullitt and Lake Forest. We'll march down Lake Forest to Reed, into Joe Brown Park, and come together and rally at shelter number 3.
Okay. Give everybody the contact information.
Contact number is 504-351-9735. Again, the number is 504-351-9735.
Patrick, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Please call Patrick Young. My email is patrick.young@nola.gov, and my phone number is 504-658-4996. Please, let's connect, let's work together. If there are other peacekeeping organizations or families, we want to work with you. Also, we have like I said, we have our hospital crisis response team. We respond to every shooting in the city. And we have a team that goes to the hospital, talk with families to try to prevent retaliation mediations. We want to work with every school, every facility to put in place interventions, again, that could prevent more gun violence from spreading.
Okay, powerful approach to a very serious concern and problem in our city, guys. So you got information, y'all can be a part of the solution. That's what we're in the solution business.
Yeah.
This is down by law. We get out of here. We appreciate you guys. Alfred family, John and Risha, Patrick. I really appreciate you guys coming on the show. Let's continue these efforts to change. Thank you for listening to another episode.